Picture yourself holding a small piece of history that slipped through the mint's quality control, carrying with it a story and rarity that send collectors racing for their wallets. Today's spotlight lands on a trio of United States quarters, each with its own tale of error or rarity and each commanding attention on auction blocks. We begin our journey with the 1993 quarter, a coin that blends subtle nuances in minting with surprising twists in value. You might think quarters are everyday pocket change, but when errors and scarce varieties enter the picture, those clinking discs transform into prized artifacts that seasoned collectors dream about. The 1993 quarter was struck at 3 different mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Yet it is the Philadelphia minted doubtful variety that captivates most enthusiasts. Early in the minting process, some dies developed a faint doubling on the date and lettering. At first glance, the doubling seems almost invisible, a ghostly whisper of manufacturing imperfection. That whisper, however, is loud enough to create rarity. The majority of these doubled die dies were removed quickly, leaving perhaps only a handful of coins in circulation. Even experts must lean in closely with a loupe to spot the subtle shift of metal, making this variety a gem for those who know where to look and how to verify authenticity. Turning to its origin story, the 1993 quarter comes from a period when the U.S. Mint was still fine-tuning quality control measures after the massive surge in coin demand triggered by the bicentennial. The unusual doubling crept in as inspectors raced to meet production quotas. Reports from Mint employees at the time described the doubled die as an anomaly that appeared on a small batch of hubs before being caught. That story alone adds a layer of human drama to each 1993 double die quarter. You hold not just copper-nickel alloy, but a snapshot of a mint run in overdrive, trying to keep pace with a nation's coin needs. Identifying that rare 1993 double die piece hinges on a few key features. First, look at the date. There should be a slight shadow offset to the right of each digit. Next, the motto, E pluribus unum, and the word liberty, may display a whisper of doubling, most apparent on the tops of the letters. Under direct light and with magnification, that doubling takes on a three-dimensional quality, as if someone painted a thin outline around the letters. Most circulated examples fail to retain the crispness needed to showcase the doubling clearly, making high-grade specimens all the more valuable. When it comes to current market value, 1993 double die quarters regularly fetch between $500 and $1,200 in circulated grades. Certified mint state examples with strong detail and full luster have sold for upwards of $3,000 at premium auctions. The record stands even higher for a flawless specimen graded MS 67 or beyond, crossing the $5,000 threshold. A February 2024 sale saw one such coin reach $5,250 in a Scottsdale auction, securing its place as one of the more surprising success stories among modern U.S. coin errors. But this quarter holds more than its auction numbers. A fascinating anecdote involves a longtime collector who discovered a 1993 double die at a local coin show, tucked inside a folder of mixed-date quarters. Mistaken for a minor curiosity, it stayed on his shelf for years until he casually took it to an independent grading service. That unassuming discovery highlighted a truth in error collecting. Treasures often hide in plain sight, waiting for someone with the right eye to unlock their value. Condition plays a starring role in what collectors will pay. In worn, circulated grades, an example might bring $500, but once you move into the uncirculated range, grades like MS60 through MS63, the price climbs steeply, sometimes doubling for each grade increment. An MS64 example can hit $1,500, while a near-perfect MS66 specimen could fetch over $4,000. Once you glimpse that luster and the crisp edges of the doubling, mint state coins become a whole different level of pursuit. Beyond the double die variety, there are other intriguing error forms for the 1993 quarter. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and even rare proof specimens from San Francisco with weak cameo contrast turn up on occasion. While none of those types compete with the double die in average value, they broaden the collecting landscape and offer alternate pathways to discover something unique from the same year. For those aged collectors who grew up pocketing quarters at soda fountains and arcade games, the 1993 double die presents a nostalgic twist. It recalls an era when quarters still bought a soda and arcade tokens, Yet it reminds us how even recent coins can slip through quality controls. For anyone who may own a handful of 1993 quarters in a jar, this story encourages a second look, one worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. As we transition from the 1993 double-die quarter toward our next featured coin, keep that loupe at hand and your attention sharp. The next quarter carries its own hallmarks of rarity and value, rooted in a different era and error type. But before we unveil that story, let this first coin remind you how a slight shift in metal can shift the focus of an entire collection. Shifting gears from the subtle doubling of the 1993 issue, let's turn our attention to a quarter born in a time when change jingled in every pocket, but errors carried extra weight. The 1970 Washington quarter stepped off the presses during a minting era still adjusting to new alloys and growing demand. Most of these coins entered circulation without fanfare, but a handful slipped through with surprises that now spark heated bids among seasoned collectors and anyone lucky enough to unearth one in their loose change stash. Back in 1970, the United States Mint was refining its blend of copper and nickel, and quality control relied on a blend of human inspection and machinery that, despite best efforts, occasionally stumbled. The most celebrated error for this year is the so-called wide rim variety, where excessive pressure during striking caused the rim to spread slightly outward, creating a broader frame around George Washington's profile. You won't notice that extra width unless you compare it side by side with a standard issue under proper lighting, but experienced eyes spot a gentle flare at the coin's edge that transforms an everyday quarter into a collectible anomaly. The origin of the 1970 wide rim quarter is rooted in a period of experimentation at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Records indicate that in early 1970, several dies were adjusted to compensate for die wear, but pressure settings remained inconsistent. That inconsistency granted a fortunate few coins a marginally expanded rim. Mint employees later described the phenomenon as a flaring effect, acknowledging that the error was neither malicious nor intentional, just a byproduct of presses operating at the outer limits of their calibration. Key identifying features include the noticeable extra width around the circumference and slightly more pronounced rims. The field inside that rim often shows faint lines where the die's adjustment stressed the metal differently, creating subtle striations. On the obverse, Washington's hair may appear a whisper sharper against the broader frame, while the reverse's eagle offers a bit more breathing room. These small enhancements give the quarter a distinct silhouette when held at an angle, making it a thrill to spot in ordinary rolls. When it comes to value, the 1970 wide rim in circulated condition typically trades between $100 and $250, depending on how well the flared edge stands out. Uncirculated examples graded MS-63 can fetch $400 to $600, and once you reach MS-65, prices approach $1,200. The record holder remains a pristine MS-66 sold in a heritage auction that pulled in $1,750, thanks in part to its razor-sharp rim and flawless surfaces. That sale, in late 2023, reminded collectors that even issues from a relatively mundane year can surge when an error meets top-tier preservation. Beyond the wide rim variety, the 1970 quarter also offers other rarities that seasoned collectors pursue. Off-center strikes up to 3 mm from center can cross $200 in circulated grades and climb past $800 when mint state. Double die obverse are scarce but exist, featuring a ghost image of Washington that's faint yet discernible under careful loupe examination. Every one of these error types paints a richer portrait of a minting fixture still mastering high-volume production. A memorable anecdote involves a longtime collector who discovered a 1970 wide rim quarter tucked inside a coin roll marked miscellaneous. Doubting its significance, he shelved it alongside modern commemoratives. Years later, while preparing a collection for grading, he stumbled on the coin and decided to have it authenticated. The grading service's reaction reportedly included surprise and excitement. An MS-64 wide rim graded with full luster, proving that treasures often lurk below the surface of mixed-date rolls. Condition remains the primary driver of value for the 1970 wide rim quarter. Circulated examples graded VG to XF exhibit their flared rims, but lack the luster that commands top dollar. Mint state coins display that metallic sheen and crisp detail on Washington's portrait and the eagle's feathers. Moving up from MS60 to MS65 can triple or quadruple value at each step. For those holding onto a handful of 1970 quarters, spotting one with a slight bulge at the rim under a bright lamp could signal a significant find. Current market trends suggest that demand for modern errors continues to grow as seasoned collectors seek anomalies beyond classic issues. Auction houses now reserve dedicated lots for 1970 wide rims and related errors, often featuring high-resolution images that highlight the rim's expansion. The most successful listings pair expert commentary with detailed photographs, allowing bidders to assess in advance and driving more competitive bidding. That professional presentation underscores how even a seemingly ordinary year in minting can produce extraordinary outcomes. Digging deeper, you'll find that the metallurgy of the 1970 quarter plays a subtle role in error formation. Slight variances in alloy percentages, sometimes as little as 1% difference in copper content, affect how the metal flows under pressure. On the wide rim specimens, that extra malleability at the coin's edge allowed the metal to stretch further, capturing the die's outermost elements. Collectors who study planchet composition alongside error types uncover a rich field of technical insights that complements the hunt for rarities. Collectors value provenance almost as much as condition, and the 1970 wide rim has its share of storied lineages. One notable piece, graded MS65+, once belonged to a former mint inspector who kept it as a reference sample. That coin now resides in a private collection, often cited in reference guides and auction catalogs. Its journey from the mint inspector's desk to a high-profile auction lot adds narrative weight, showing how human involvement at every stage, from press operation to catalog listing, shapes a coin's collectible journey. Finally, the 1970 quarter reminds us that even coins from our lifetimes can attain legendary status. Collectors aged 40 and above recall finding pocket change at arcades and laundromats, unaware that decades later, those same coins might command five-figure prices in pristine error grades. For anyone who's stashed a roll of 1970 quarters away, now is the moment to revisit that collection under a bright light and a magnifier. You might hold not just pocket money, but a piece of minting history that resonates with both technical intrigue and lasting value. Leaning into the rhythm of mint presses and the stories they tell, let's glide from the wide rim wonders of 1970 into the quarter that quietly slipped into circulation in 1980, only to surprise collectors decades later. The 1980 quarter often blends into pocket change, but under scrutiny it reveals varieties and errors that give it a new lease on life and a potential home on your collector's shelf. If you thought modern quarters lacked drama, the twists in planchet preparation and striking precision in 1980 prove otherwise. The year 1980 stood at the crossroads between traditional minting processes and the dawn of more automated, high-speed presses. While the mint aimed for uniformity, early production hiccups introduced notable rarities. Chief among them is the Philadelphia FS 103 double die obverse, where unexpected die polishing left behind a ghostly echo of Washington's profile. That faint second image on the bust, cheek, and motto brings a subtle but unmistakable three-dimensional quality to the coin. Historians trace the origin of this error to a hurried retooling of hubs in late 1979, just as demand for quarters surged to support arcade machines and payphones. To spot the double die FS 103, start by examining the hair curls above Washington's ear. You should see a slight, parallel shadow, almost like a faint reflection, tracing the original design before the polishing blurred it. The legend "In God We Trust" also shows fine doubling on the tops of the letters, most evident in the WE and Trust. Under loupe magnification, those letters appear to pop off the surface, as if someone brushed a thin outline around them. It's a delicate effect that disappears if the coin has seen heavy circulation, so condition becomes critical in realizing its full visual impact. Auction records for the FS 103 doubled die reveal a market hungry for nuance. Circulated examples, graded EF to AU, trade around $200 to $350, with prices leaning higher when the doubling is crisp. Uncirculated specimens graded MS 62 through MS 64 fetch $500 to $900, and a standout MS 65 can exceed $1,500. The record for this variety climbed to $2,200 at a specialist error coin auction in early 2024, when a pristine example sold after spirited bidding. That sale underscored how a modest doubling translates into serious premiums once collectors recognize the subtlety involved. Beyond the doubled die, 1980 quarters also showcase planchet flaws that turn casual rolls into treasure chests. Blanching, where planchets failed to receive proper oxide removal before striking, produced pale, matte finish quarters sometimes mistaken for earlier issues. These blanched planchet examples appear slightly chalky, off-gray rather than bright silver, and they often bear small speckles where metal residue clung during striking. In circulated grades, these might command $50 to $100, but mint state examples graded MS 63 plus to MS 65 can leap into the $300 to $600 range, with the best specimens surpassing $800. A rare off-center strike from 1980 adds another chapter to this coin story. When planchets misfeed, they shift off the center of the die, creating a crescent of blank planchet along one side. On a quarter this extreme, you'll see most of Washington's portrait intact while a thin slice of the rim and lettering vanishes into the blank. Even a 3 or 4 mm off-center error carries $150 to $300 in circulated condition, while a boldly off-center MS 60 example can spike past $1,000 in specialized auctions. Perhaps the most humanizing tale comes from an Ohio collector who pulled a 1980 Blanche planchet quarter from a teller's till, thinking it was simply worn. It wasn't until a coin club meeting that someone pointed out the telltale matte finish. When the collector had it certified, the slab revealed a glossy, untouched surface beneath its chalky exterior. A revelation that taught everyone to look beyond patina for hidden gems. In considering current market trends, small errors have gained traction. Online auction sites feature dedicated modern mint errors categories, and 1980 quarter types appear regularly. Grading services now highlight these rarities in registry sets, setting off healthy competition among collectors logging matched varieties. The doubling and blanching errors share registry pages where advanced collectors compare images, helping newbies identify key features and driving awareness. And prices, higher. Value variations based on condition are dramatic for these 1980 varieties. A well-circulated FS 103 doubled die might start at $200, but pushing into negative $58 Australian dollars territory, where luster hints still show, can double that price. Mint state grades accelerate growth, from MS 60 $400 to MS 63 $800, and beyond. Similarly, a Blanche planchet in MS 64 can top $600, but an MS 66 example might breach $1,000 if the surface shows no detracting marks. Off-center strikes vary too. A minor 2 mm shift in MS 63 might reach $700, while a dramatic 7 mm misalignment in MS 65 could eclipse $2,500. Technical factors underlie these errors. The FS 103 doubling stems from a worn hub die that received light recutting, leaving residual impressions. Blanching errors reflect inconsistencies in acid baths meant to clean planchets, while off-centers reveal mechanical nuances in blanking and feeding mechanisms. For collectors with an eye for metallurgy, these technical details add depth to the hunt, transforming each find into both a visual and scientific puzzle. Collectors often seek provenance alongside physical attributes. One notable 1980 FS 103 doubling quarter is listed in major reference guides. Sourced from a single dump of mint direct rolls sold in the early 80s to dealers. That specimen's journey, from mint to dealer hoard to graded registry star, illustrates how initial distribution quirks influence rarity. It also underscores why die studies, which track hub history and die stages, remain vital to understanding modern errors. For coin enthusiasts in their 40s and 50s, the 1980 quarter bridges childhood memories of arcade tokens and modern collector culture. It's a reminder that rare coins aren't confined to the distant past. Errors and varieties continue to emerge as minting technology evolves. If you've set aside a roll of 1980 quarters, now's the moment to shine a bright light on each face, looking for that whisper of doubling, the pale sheen of a blanched planchet, or the ghostly absence of metal in an off-center piece. As we draw this final coin's narrative to a close, remember how the smallest deviations, from a faint outline of Washington's profile to the shade of metal, transform a quarter into a conversation piece and an investment. Whether you're charting registry sets or casually inspecting pocket change, the 1980 quarter rewards patience, knowledge, and a keen eye. In our next wrap-up, we'll tie together how these distinct eras reflect the ever-evolving story of the U.S. Mint, and why modern quarters deserve just as much attention as their storied ancestors.